Start.
Okay. Good morning. Special thank you to all the Mesadrim, especially the Mesiras Nefesh, for this morning, which is a little bit on the cold side. And a special thank you specifically to Svi Goldring for being here for all the recording, and to the Reb Zeitlin, the two Reb Zeitlins, Reb Shmuel, and also to Nachman Fried for being behind all this, and also my Rebbe, Chaim Kramer, and BRI. Welcome. We're in paragraph Hey. That's where we're starting. We should finish it as well. Of Torah Zayin in Tneinã. The very fast recap is that we first start off saying that there is no real leader unless he's a Rahman, and the Rahman, the compassion, the level of mercy, so to speak, that's required of such a leader, is that he has to be able to reach the most furthest person in his flock, both the closest and the furthest. And what's called the furthest? Someone who, Has v'Shalom, is involved with avonos. He's got a track record of avonos, I'm in good company. So comes along Rav Nachman and tells us you need a Rachaman, someone who can reach such people, because all Yisurin, all suffering, quotes the Gemara in Shabbos, is only because of an Avon. Ein Yisurin beloy Avon. And all the worst Yisurin, the worst suffering, the difficulties that we are challenged by, whether it's health, whether it's finances, whether it's family members, whether it's our personal growth, all that Yisurin is nothing compared to Avonos. Avonos is much worse Yisurin. And so then the question becomes, well, I'm really impressed people turned up. The question becomes, what causes Averis?
The Rebbe pulls a crowd.
Yeah.
And the deliverer pulls a crowd.
So what causes Averis? So Rav Nachman tells us, really it's only Chasaron Das. There's something missing in my mind that I'm capable of doing an Avera. Ein Adam over Avera, ela im kein Nichnas bei Roch Shtus. It's impossible to actually do an Avera unless I have a moment of insanity in the time that I actually do whatever I'm doing or say whatever I'm saying that's an Avera. That's the only way. So then the next two paragraphs, Dalet and Hey, are focusing on, okay, so how do you inject Das into the mind of a person that makes them less likely to do an Avera, or they recover faster, because they have understood that Das kicked in soon after the actual Avera. So how do you get people to have Das? And that's been the major discussion. So Rav Nachman points out that when you speak to another person with Yirat Shemayim, you're talking to them about Avodas Hashem and giving them chizuk. That is giving them das. Das is the ultimate knowledge that Hashem is our Father, the ultimate knowledge that we are never alone, the ultimate knowledge that no matter how far I am or have been, Hashem is extremely close to me. It doesn't come out good in English. If I'm very far from Hashem, how can he be very close? And the answer is, it's all in my mind. I can think I'm very far from Hashem, but he's very close to me. As the pasuk which will be quoted is this item, which is referring to teshuvah, it's a thought to come back to Hashem. It's extremely close to you. It's a pasuk in Devarim, Perek Lamed, pasuk Yud Dalet. Kikarav elecha hadavar ma'od. How close is a thought of teshuvah? It's extremely close to you. How close? Beficha. It's in your mouth. Your mouth goes wherever you go. Your tongue goes wherever you go. So our tongue is always there to say one word, sorry. It's in your thoughts, la'asosa, to do it. So Hashem is always extremely close to us, and that's the main das. The main das is to know Hashem is everywhere all the time. There's no situation I can ever find myself in that is too far from Hashem to reach me. And I need a tzaddik, or in this case now Rav Nachman is pointing out, you don't have to be a tzaddik who can reach others. You can be someone who's just giving chizuk. Then in this last paragraph we went over how you don't have to be just the one giving the chizuk. It's a chaver. You can do this by just being a friend and by talking in avodas Hashem and chizuk in emunah, chizuk in das, chizuk in not giving up. That is also giving das to another person. And what Rav Nachman is now going to do in paragraph Hey is explain to us what are the conditions, what type of person do I have to be able to give das and to receive das from others. So, Amnam, we're in paragraph Hey. Misha writes ledaber im chaveroi b'yirat shamayim. If you want to speak to your friend in yirat shamayim, to lift them up, give them a pick me up, hu tzarich sheyeh lo yirat shamayim. He himself has to have yirat shamayim, kedei shehiu devarav nishmayim, in order that his words should be listened to. There's different levels of listening, and it's interesting throughout the Torah. Whenever you have the lashon of shmiya, you look at the Targum, and the Targum, which is from Har Sinai, so Gemara in Megillah Daf Gimel, the Targum was given at Har Sinai, and the Targum, therefore, is really Hashem's interpretation of His own word. The interpretation of the word shmiya is Kabbalah. Kabbalah correctly translates as a commitment. That when a person hears something, they make a commitment to what they're hearing. It's not in one one ear, out the other. It's a serious acceptance. That's usually the translation. And shmiya, therefore, you look up, let's say in V'hayayim Shema Tishmu. You look it up there, in Parak Yud Aleph, I believe it is, Pasuk Yud Gimel in Devarim, you'll see the Haya'im Shema Tishmu, which we say every day, second paragraph of Kriyat Shema. Look at the Targum, and the Targum is if you are mikabel on yourself. So Kabbalah means to accept to a level of commitment. So how do I get that my words should be accepted? It's very nice I'm talking in Torah and mitzvahs and Yirat Shemaim and trying to give my friend chizuk, but the real goal is that person should hear it at a level of Kabbalah. They should commit themselves to it. So, why? In order that my words should be accepted etzel chaveira, by my friend, as Chazal tell us, it's more in Brachas Davav Amud Beis that he brings here, Kol mi sheyesh bo yirat shemayim, any person who's got yirat shemayim, Devarav nishmayim, his words are heard. And what we're talking about is it's a level of Kabbalah, that the person listening is capable of committing to the words. So you see from here that it's the mindset of the speaker that makes all the difference to the ears and mind of the listener. So if a person's a Yirat Shemayim, that's incredible. We're going to see soon, there's a different level called Yiras Chet, so we'll unpack both of those in a few moments. And also in order that the words said will not only be makubal, accepted, and the person will make a commitment to it, but there will be a kiyum, that those words will remain, they will be preserved in the mind of the listener. Because sometimes one person speaks to his friend, and immediately, straight away, over the words pass, and go, from his mind. The words went through one ear, out the other, and passed through the brain in between, but it didn't stay there. And doesn't remain there. We've talked about the word kiyum, a very important word. Kiyum is extremely important. It's really the kiyum of everything. Kiyum is everything. There's an interesting Gemara which is very frequently misquoted. It's a Gemara Menachas Daf Tzadik Tes, which says, Pa'amim, sometimes bitulai shel Torah, not learning Torah, zuhu kiyuma. It's actually the kiyum. So a person goes to sleep, or a person has to spend time letting his mind relax, or get into a conversation, even if it's mili de alma, just talking about whatever is going on in the world, and then get back to learning. A person can't just be learning all the time. And that wasted time, in inverted commas, that bitula, is the kiyum. So sometimes it's quoted as Yesoida. It's not that much different. Yesoida, Zuhi Yesoida. This is its foundation. So either way, the word kiyum actually means maintenance. And we mentioned last week that a much greater achievement than actually bringing a child into the world, which is an achievement, is the maintenance of that child, to raise it. That's much harder. To be married, it's not easy, but it's a lot easier than staying married. That's kiyum. Kiyum is always the hardest. To make a lot of money, mazel tov, well done. But to maintain wealth, that is not easy. To spend less than one earns and invest the difference, that takes discipline. That's kiyum. Kiyum. There's a fascinating book it's been out for a while. The multi-millionaire next door, and it's referring to the ordinary millionaires who you would never know from their lifestyle that they are actually so wealthy. And the reason why is because they don't spend their wealth on things they don't need. And by doing that, they end up making the money that's coming off residual income in interest, they put it back into the investment so it continually grows. But each time it's growing exponentially, in the sense that the interest is going back into the investment. That's called kiyum. As opposed to, now I've got the money, what can I afford that I didn't have till now? So kiyum is huge. So if I want my words to have a kiyum in the person listening, it first starts off with not how eloquent I am or how well prepared my words are, but depends on how much Yirat Shamayim is inside here. So if we're going to take this to the biggest extent, the person who's got the most Yirat Shamayim has the biggest possible expansive influence. The potential of that influence is the greatest. So no wonder Moshe Rabbeinu, who's the giver of the Torah, there's no one who's closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu than Moshe Rabbeinu. Panim el panim, Yedaber, he spoke face to face, so to speak, and in that sense, ki Yedaber ish el chaveri, that's the way the pasuk sets it up. So now you know, panim el panim means just like you're speaking to a friend. That's how Moshe Rabbeinu spoke with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was let into Hashem's closest throne room whenever he wanted. He had immediate access. He could go right into the throne room where Hashem, so to speak, is sitting on the Kisei HaKavod. Kisei HaKavod refers to the throne room where decisions are made. That's what it means metaphorically, so to speak. Hashem hasn't got a body, hasn't got a throne, but in the concept of what this refers to is that he could call upon Hashem at any moment and change his mind through his tefillah. That's an incredible power, to change Hashem's mind. That's an astonishing power Hashem gave the Jewish people, but especially the tzaddikim, and on top of all of them is Moshe Rabbeinu. So of course Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah has the most spread. Parenthetically, it happens to be the most printed book in world history is the Bible, referring specifically to the Old Testament, and that's not surprising. The second is Shakespeare, Lahavdil, and the third used to be Agatha Christie, but it switched to Harry Potter. So if you want to know who's in the top three, but the Torah is by far the most printed book in world history. It's only about 500 years of actual printing, but it still says a lot. So it could be that I'm speaking to someone, but it goes right through one ear, out the other. So that's why, in order for the receiver to accept the words of chizuk, the giver has to have yirat shamayim. Ki misha yiras chetoi kodemes lohachmasai. Now here's something interesting. He's going to tell you something that not only there's two things here. There's Kabbalah, the person accepts it and commits to it, but then there's something which is much more important, which is kiyum, that it stays by them. That influence or inspiration actually has a retention. It stays over time. So for that we need yirat chet. So says Rav Nachman, ki mish yirat chetoi kodemes lechachmasai. Someone who's yiras chet, he's afraid of doing something wrong, even a mistake. Chet is the lowest level of averas. It's a mistake. It wasn't done on purpose. Chachmasai miskayemet. His chachma will have a kiyum. So now when his mouth opens up and he downloads the chachma from his mind into the ears of another person, that receiver has the potential of a kiyum on top of the fact that the person might also be a yirei shamayim. So really, and now he quotes the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that is the source for this. Paragimel Mishnah Tes. Hainu sheyesh kiyum ledvarav etzel chaverei. the Mishnah there says, Kol shiratoi kodemes lehochmasoi, hochmasoi miskayemes. So if a person's yirat chet comes before his chokhmah, then whatever chokhmah goes into his mind, it has the potential of kiyum, as opposed to if his chokhmah precedes his yirat chet, he's intellectually stimulated by learning, but has no interest in, has no worry about doing aveiros, but enjoys learning. That means that the chokhmah will not have a kiyum. The kiyum we're talking about in the biggest picture here is, as we've stated before, that the person will leave behind, when he leaves this world, he'll leave behind his da'as in his child or student, or both. And that's called kiyum. That's really the ultimate kiyum. And that was Moshe Rabbeinu. We still have his Torah, the Torah Shebechtav, and the Torah Shebal Peh. It's still being learnt and lived. So Rav Nachman is pointing out that the more Yirat Chet and more Yirat Shemayim, the further is your potential influence. And in that sense, Rav Nachman, we're going to get to it in the later paragraphs. We'll talk about the need for this Rachaman that we started off at the beginning of this Torah to be on such a high level of Rahmanus that he has a deep, deep love for the biggest Rasha, and will do anything to help that Rasha. Even after that Rasha leaves this world, will do everything he can to pull them out of Gehenna. So that is a level that we're going to look at later. I think I shared with you Rav Yehuda Fatia was a huge makubal, not that long ago, barely 100 years ago. He actually attempted to pull Yashka out of Gehenna. He was not successful, but what blows my mind is the Havamina. That's incredible. There was actually such an attempt. So it appears that anyone who truly is born a Jew, he's Mizera Yisrael, then that means that no matter his aveiros, there is some sort of saving grace, some way to rescue them at the end of time. So that's something really worthwhile looking into at another time. So Nimtza. So what comes out of this is the following: Misha Reitze lahachnis das bechavei. Someone who wants his das to successfully get into the mind of his friend or his wife or his child or his student. We're talking about a chaver, but really it goes on anybody. So what's needed? Hu tzarich sheyeh lo yirat shemayim. The first thing he has to have is Yirat Shemayim. Yirat Shemayim, we'll talk about in a few moments, is not exactly the same as Yirat Chet, and we'll look at that soon. Kadei sheyu Devarim nishmayim, u kadei sheis kaimu Devarim. He needs both Yirat Shemayim and Yirat Chet in order that his words will be listened to, mekubal, accepted, committed to, and there'll be a kiyum. It's not going to be end at the end of this conversation. V'zehu. Now Rav Nachman does a brilliant, now goes back to the original verse that we learnt, that when a person dies and leaves behind a son or a student who is, so to speak, a substitute for the parent or the Rebbe, that substitute is successful to the extent to which they have imbued in the mind of the student or the child the das of the parent of the Rebbe. So now the pasuk he quoted earlier was from Kapitel Tehillim, Perek Nun Hey, pasuk Chaf, Asher Ein Chalifa Islamoy. The pasuk says, someone who did not leave for himself a substitute. And the Gemara, which unpacks this pasuk in Bava Basra, which we've quoted, the pasuk ends off and had no fear for Hashem. Hainu. So now Rav Nachman explains. If a person doesn't leave behind his das al yedei ben or talmid, through giving birth to a child or having imbued his das into a student, shezeh bechinas chalifais, which is what is referred to in the language that David HaMelech used in chalifais, substitute, zeh siman shelo yaru elokim, then that means they didn't have yiras Hashem. Because if they had Yiras Hashem, their words would have stayed. There would have been a kiyum in the student or the child. Because it's through the yira that the speaker has that there's a chance that the words will actually be listened to. So we're learning the words of a huge tzaddik MS, and so there's a decent chance that these words will actually penetrate and have a kiyum. Yes.
What level does the bechira of the person play in this?
Of the receiver, of the listener. Excellent question. So we're actually going to get to it in paragraph 6 and in 7 when we talk about makifim. Makifim, I'm not translating, getting into it right now, but new levels of insight, new levels of understanding. One of the qualities of this Rachaman, this master teacher, if you want to call it, is that they are aware as to what is the receptivity of the listener, that they are ready for this new hekef, this new insight, this new understanding. So you're 100% correct. There are many times in a person's life where what they've heard doesn't penetrate, and it could take weeks, months, years, and even decades. I've seen that. I'm old enough to say that I've seen that in my lifetime. I'm 66, and I've seen things that my mother told me that I thought was ridiculous, beyond. Traveling a few times, and everything she said, everything I learned decades later was not just accurate, it was 100% accurate. And at the time, it made no sense. I'll give you one example. I'll never forget traveling in our car, and we were I even remember the district in London, where my mother saw a Mercedes being driven by an Arab, and Arabs, their hairdress, you can tell that it's an Arab driving the car. And one Arab had recently bought up Inn on the Park, which is a very, very fancy hotel in London. And my mother, who herself is very familiar with the Arab culture, she speaks Arabic, she spoke Arabic fluently. She was born in Baghdad, and she escaped there in 1951 with her mother. She was fully aware of their tactics. So she told me then, and I realized this is not just a conspiracy. This is a conspiracy theory that has no starting point. So she said, you're going to see, they're going to come into this country with several wives. They're going to propagate, have many, many children, and they're going to take over Britain and Europe through democracy. And I don't think I was disrespectful to my mother, but I respectfully disagreed. I thought it's ridiculous. One hotel, and you see just a few Mercedes. So where do they have the money for these Mercedes? It's pouring into the country. Today, it's irreversible. 10 years ago, Muhammad was the second most common name in Britain. Today, it's the first most common name in Britain. So Europe is irreversible. There are things that a person's not ready to hear and doesn't have the evidence to back it to say, I agree. But it takes time for a person to mature to the point where they realize, oh, I was told this years ago. I'm sorry? El-Arba'im Shona. That's my beginning of Avodah Zarah. I think Daf Dalet Daf Hey, in reference to Moshe Rabbeinu, that he only told Klal Yisrael after 40 years that Hashem natan lechem lev ladas. So it takes time. So we do have to be ready, and the way to be ready, the best way I can think of, is just ask Hashem, please, Rabbi Shalom, whatever I'm ready for, help, please give it to me. Rav Nachman gives a story of a child who's deathly ill, and the king, whose child it is, the prince, asks the Jews that they got to pray for them. And I don't remember all the details now, but essentially, Hacham, who's the tzaddik, comes and pours, and says, what you've got to do is to get these very, very precious stones from all over the world and bring them to me. And he crushed them down into a powder. He put it into a liquid, I probably was water, and then poured it over the child. And the vast majority was completely wasted. But the point was that it just needed one drop for this child who seemed to be in a coma for a very long time, the prince, the crown prince, nonetheless. It just needed one drop of this medicine to get between the lips and penetrate the body, and he would be cured. And kachaya. So I don't remember which of the Mefarshim in Breslov explain it, but essentially the reason why there's so many inyanim of chizuk, hispotus, nekudas tovas, simcha, tamimus. There's so many different inyanim that we need all of it, because we don't know which of it's actually going to get inside and stay there, so that there's a kiyum that a person wakes up and says, I don't care what happens today, I'm starting again, I'm starting again, I'm starting again. And even if I fall, I'm starting again. So that takes a certain level of commitment and takes a kiyum of a certain maturity, where I actually believe, Belev Shalem, Be'emunah Shlema, Hashem loves me so much that it doesn't even make a difference how many times I fall. What makes a difference is how many times I pick myself up. That's what matters the most. Will I keep getting up no matter what? That is victory. Victory is the struggle. We're living in a country that victory is the results. That's not how God says it. If he did, the Mishnah would have been written differently. The Mishnah says, Pirkei Avos, Perek Hey, right at the end, Lefum Sarah Agra, according to the difficulty. That is what the compensation is. You want to translate it reward, you can, but it doesn't really mean that, but it's okay. The compensation Hashem has in store for us is according to the effort. It's not how many duff, it's how much we tried. It's the discipline of another page, and not giving up. And eventually Hashem says, you know what, this guy is so obstinate, I have to help him. It's not fair. And he does. That's how God works. There's more to be said on that subject, but your point is very well taken. I have to be receptive. And even if I'm not, the fact that it's been told, somewhere in the deep recesses of my mind, it's there. There are other examples. I would never... my mother used to tell me, never listen to your teachers. I don't care how brilliant they are, if they say that there's no God. Or if they tell you about evolution, just know it's absolute rubbish. In England, I'll translate that. That means it's absolute garbage. Rubbish. Yes. I know it's so interesting when you hear something that is said with tamimus, and it's said in her case with Yirat Shemaim. She had a very, very simple tamimustika emunah in Hashem. Devarim Hayotzim Halev, Nichnassim Belev. But what we're going to see is there's a concept of Devarim Hayotzim Halev, Nichnassim Belev Hamedaber, and that's what Rav Nachman is actually talking about, because we're going to see when he talks about makifim, that sometimes the person you're speaking to is not ready for what you've just downloaded from your mind into his. They can't be tofasit, they can't grasp it. Their intellectual capacity or their midas or their bechira is not at that level yet. But sometimes what will happen is that the very words that came out our mouth will bounce back off the wall of this person's mind. It's like talking to a wall. You've got the expression, talking to a wall. That means the words are bouncing back on us. So there's a chance that the actual inspiration that we're trying to give to our friend of Yirat Shemaim and Chizuk in Emunah, Chizuk in Simcha, Chizuk in not giving up, it will bounce back on us and we benefit from the actual talking itself. So that's the expression, Devarim Hayotzim min Halev, Nichnassim Belev. So Rav Nachman's adding on, Belev Hamedaber. The one who's speaking is the one who's going to get if the receiver's not ready, it'll bounce back on him. So this is actually in Sikha Saran, where in Tzadik Tes, I don't know if we got any Sikha Saran, but I'll say it very quickly. Kish'echad Medaber, this is paragraph 99. When a person speaks im Chavera with his friend, B'yirat Shemayim, Nas Ur Yasha, the Ur Chayzer. He creates two types of light. The light that's straight, coming from his mind to his mouth to the ears of his friend. The Ur Chayzer, and then there's a return of that light, it bounces back. Sometimes the light that is coming out of his clarity of his mind going to his friend actually gets to him. It bounces back to the speaker before it enters the ears of the listener. Because when the Makabel, this is really going into your question, he's got a small mind. Moher Katan, I don't think it means a small brain. I was thinking of having a brain transplant, but I changed my mind.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like that too. Thank you. If a person's got a Moher Katan, I was looking for a brain transplant. They said that you said that your brain is so small. In your case, it will be a minor operation. So anyway, if the person's got a moher katan, now katan means small, but the real translation of katan is, even in halacha, it means immature. They haven't yet got das. A gadol is someone who's got das. The difference between the two is a katan is dependent because he hasn't got das yet. So he needs to rely on other people to protect and guide. But a person who's considered a gadol, an adult, he's accountable for his mistakes because he's got the das to know better. And therefore he can make the right decision. And when he makes the wrong decision, he has to pay the consequences. And the consequences often are his best teachers to help him to learn better the next time round. So someone who's called a bar das, a child of das, or an adult, which is what a person is the moment they turn bar mitzvah, an adult is someone who's independent. They can think for themselves. So a moher katan means their brain is not yet ready. It's not got the maturity to understand the value of what they're being told. So you can speak to your children about eating healthy, not going out without a sweater or without your winter coat, and it's not going to make that much of a difference. They're going to have to learn by themselves anyway. So you may as well let them learn by themselves. At the very most, maybe just tell them once, or if you want, what I used to call when I was raising teenagers. Anyone who has teenagers will appreciate why some animals eat their young. That's pure humor, by the way, no reflection on reality whatsoever. So I remember I created for myself something I called it voice and choice. This is my voice, but it's really your choice, and I meant it. Meaning, I don't think you should spend your money because I got my kids to earn their own money. It used to be they drove us nuts. I want this, can I have this? So I came up with a really good solution. My answer to them was every time we went shopping. My answer to them was, can I have it? Can you afford it? Like, why are you turning to me? You're an adult. So we created something I call it Family Bank, and the children would get money for chores around the house, which was not considered just being a team player in the home, or chores like winter, shoveling snow, the leaves, etc. Birthday gifts to get cash, parents, grandparents, etc. And they would get an allowance every week. And that will go on a ledger, like you used to have with checkbooks. And in the ledger, it will tell you the date and the number of the check. They would have their own little checks. I printed them out in color, and they would write out where the check's going. It would either go into their own bank account. It would be a deposit. So there's no actual cash being used over here. The children, they would get allowance. It would be put on their ledger. When they got a gift, it will be put in the ledger. I'm the bank, so I get to keep the cash until the child wants to buy something. So he writes out, let's say he's got an envelope. We called it the $1 Million Kid envelope, where he would cut out something from Sears magazine, Allah Shalom, and he would cut out a picture and the amount of money that item cost, and then he would stick it on the envelope. And I'm saving to buy this. I need to earn. And so on the back of the envelope would be this like mercury dial, whatever vial that you call, that you, as he's making more and more money, you see till he gets to his goal. So this was like quantifiable way that they could afford to buy things. And I Dafka wanted them to waste their money on stupidities. I think you call them kachkas or chachkas, I don't know. Chachkas? I don't even know how to pronounce it. Nonsense thing. So, but I would say voice and choice. Look, it's my. If you're asking me, I'll tell you it's a waste of money to buy this magazine. Once you've read it once, it's gone. Or buy these Laffy Taffies. If you don't go sick on them, it's just a waste. And I have to pay the dentist bills. It's not. I personally would not, but it's your choice. And I mean it. Why? Because how else are our children ever going to be financially responsible if they don't learn when they're as young as possible? I would say about 6 years old onwards. How else can they possibly learn to be financially responsible if they don't have money to spend and see how they wasted it and then make a better decision next time? So that eventually what comes out is that children realize, oh my gosh, I worked hard for that and I got no real long-term benefit. So they end up valuing the money that they are earning and getting as gifts, and then they make a better decision. I'll buy something of greater value later than satisfying my needs right now. So there's more to be said on that, but this is the concept of independence. That's what a godel is. So Ma'ach Katan means the child hasn't got the independence yet to appreciate that the information they're receiving is gold. If I start saving now while I'm a kid, OMG, that's amazing. The accumulation of interest over the years and decades, it's a lot of money. We can talk about that another time, because I've got actual examples of people who I taught this family bank to, and their kids, before they were married, saved thousands and thousands of dollars. I know one girl saved $30,000 before her chasna from following this family bank, and one parent was made to me, his son had saved $200,000. He worked, but he was working from while he was still living at home. So the vast majority of his money he was saving, and he saved it with CDs and mutual funds. It accumulated. It's a very simple concept of not spending more than you can earn, and investing the difference. Spend less than you earn, invest the difference. So a Ma'ach Katan simply means my mind is not ready to receive the Yasha that's coming out. So what ends up happening is Chayzer, the words bounce right back to the speaker himself. When people speak with another person on the subject of being strong in Hashem's Torah and mitzvahs and simcha, but his friend is not accepting it, he's not mekabel, he's not committing. Afal pikein hu mekabel his oiris mechaverei. You, the speaker, are getting his oiris from him. Ki al yedei hahaka sheyatzu adibrim mipi chaverei, by them hitting a hard wall and bouncing back on you. Al yedei zeh chayza ha'er elav. You get it back, so you benefit from your own words of chizuk. He actually gives an example. You throw something at a wall. It's the same thing when you're speaking to the wall of the mind of your friend. So Rabbi Roosevelt, Alav Shalom, this is a new set that came out. I left a set for the shul. This is volume 2 of 4 volumes. Rabbi Roosevelt, Alav Shalom, he was my Rebbe's Rebbe. Chaim Kraim was father-in-law and Rebbe. So on the Sikha, not 99, but on 119, there Rav Nosson tells us the importance of wanting the success of your friend. Rav Nachman was talking about how valuable it is that you... 119 in Sikha Saran. It's a very great virtue when a Jew is happy for other people's success in the Avodas Hashem. You see someone davening with a minyan every day. You see someone comes early. You see someone who's trying to pay attention to his davening or won't speak with his tefillin on. Whatever it is, and you get his and you're happy for that person, and you get chizuk from it. That you feel good for being in a room where it's a shul and there's svarim and you're surrounded by mivakshim. So that's a simcha. So when Rav Nosson heard this from Rav Nachman, he was a bit shocked. He thought that was obvious. And it was interesting. He writes about this, and others comment how Rav Nosson, he was such a tam, he had such a tamimus, that it was so obvious to him, of course you should be happy for someone else's success in Avodas Hashem, in learning, in davening. And so, if people would only hold on to this is what Rav Nachman said, meaning a person's pleasure in and the strong desire for a fellow Jew to succeed and excel in serving Hashem. Even if the person himself is unable to, heaven forbid, this is quite a unique level. So when Rav Nosson heard this, he was surprised. He thought that was a davar poshet by him, that he was happy for other people who are successful in learning and davening, etc. So even if you cannot attain a high level for yourself, you can still hope that others attain what is beyond your reach. So Rav Nosson then wrote, I would like nothing better than for all my friends to be great tzaddikim. This would be my greatest expression of love and friendship. I think this one kuda might have been why Rav Nosson actually became who he became. He was happy for other people. I can't remember where I saw this, but where it says Ezehu Asher Hasamech Bechelkai. So Bechelkai can go on 3 chelkais. It's a person's happy. Why is he an usher? Why is he wealthy? He enjoys his own wealth. So if he enjoys his chelik, his own chelik, so then he's always happy, no matter if it's a big or small chelik. But there's another pshat, he's happy bechelkoi in his friend's chelik. He's actually happy for the other person. That is a even higher level of ashirus, where it's not dependent on his chelik. He's happy that other people have got what they've got. He passes by a beautiful home and says, I'm happy for that person. Rabbi Victor Miller speaks about this often, that you give blessings to people you see, oh, they're wealthy, Hashem should please get them to continue their wealth and get even more wealth. You pass a beautiful home of a Frum Yid, bless that home, etc., etc. So comes along Rav Nosson. Oh, so another meaning is Samech b'chelkoi, he's happy in chelkoi, Hashem's chelik. That whatever chelik Hashem gives out to everybody, including myself, I'm happy with that. So those are three possibilities in the word chelkoi. And now, this is where the thing comes full circle. This is true Jewish love. It is explained in the Rebbe's lesson on the verse, for he who has mercy on them will lead them. And that's the pasuk that this Torah is based on. Hamerachim yirachem. The one who is the merachem, who has rachmim on others, who yisnahegem. He's the one who's qualified to lead them. So a real leader is someone who believes in the virtues of another Jew and helps him see you have those virtues. Even if the person doesn't see it himself, that is the reality. I remember my mother, just to mention again, I remember when I was about 9 years old, my sisters were 6.5, 7, and she was playing with them on the beach. And they were by the actual waves as they were coming into the beach, and I sneaked behind and climbing up not very safe cliff, and the rocks going up to the cliff. And when I was as high as I was comfortable to be, I screamed out, "Mummy, look where I am!" And I was certain she was going to scream at me, "Jonathan, come down from there now! Are you mad? You can hurt yourself, you can kill yourself." Nothing of the sort. She said to me, "How else will you learn to climb if you don't take risks?" And that stuck with me. I was so not expecting that. And on a different occasion, when she was helping me practice driving, I was 16, turning 17, getting my license, and I hadn't got my test yet. I remember reversing. She was in the passenger seat, and I was reversing her beautiful silver Peugeot, and the entrance to the driveway were two brick pillars, and as I reversed, one of the pillars moved about 6 inches inwards, and I scraped real bad. And I don't know what came over me, but as it was scraping, I didn't go on the brakes straight away. And then it occurred to me that somehow the angle that I was reversing in was not working. And so I went onto the brake, and I turned to my mother expecting a rebuke, she'ein kamohu, and she said, "Well, why are you looking at me? Put the gear," because we had the gear sticks in those days. Put the gear into forward, and move forward. And I thought, okay. And then she's going to scream at me. But the next words came out of her mouth was, and then reverse again. Give another chance. Give another chance. So that is called confidence in your intelligence.
She must have had good insurance.
Probably. So, and that was a real dent. It was not a scratch. It was a real dent. But the point that we're bringing out here is the last thing I wanted to share from Rabbeinu Zal says it's a great madrega for a person to be happy when he sees other Jews serving Hashem. And in the closing paragraph, this is a great book, by the way. You can go on the QR thing here, and you'll listen to the actual share of that sikha. This is what Rabbeinu Zal meant when he said that the real avoid of a Jew is that if has v'shalom he falls and finds that he's serving Hashem to a much lesser degree, he should still try his best to encourage others and tell them, "Chazak achi, my brother, be strong. Do not worry if something happens. Be strong, be b'simcha. Hashem will always take you back." To elevate another Jew, even though he himself has fallen and cannot rise that much, that is truly serving Hashem. So I can serve Hashem through everyone else's avodas Hashem, knowing that I don't think I'll ever reach that, but that doesn't mean I can't be happy for the other person. Moreover, and this is word for word from Rabbi Rosenfeld. Moreover, Rabbeinu Zal says that a Jew who does this is assured that he will merit divine mercy to be able to ultimately return fully. So it's
If he's happy.
he's happy for the others.
Why?
So there's a Gemara in Shabbos, around about Kuf Nun something, I've forgotten now, Kuf Nun Zayin, around about there. Kol ha-merachim ala briyos, merachim alav min ha-shamayim. The word merachim does usually mean compassion, but it actually also is synonymous with ava. That's actually the Targum on rachamim, and the Targum on ava is the same. Yes, yes. So it's synonymous. When have the recha kamocha, you also use the lotion of rachamim, and having ava for chachamim is also the same lotion. So kol ha-merachim ala briyos, anyone who has love for others, mirachmim alav min hashamayim. It's not an investment just in being done or looking at the virtues in other people. I'm preparing myself that I become a bigger and bigger keli for more shefa for Hashem to pour down into me. So actually, we are the ultimate ones who benefit. So on this,
But that's not by doing anything. It's just by feeling.
yes, yeah, being besimcha for another person. Yeah, the best schara, best merchandise in the whole universe in world history is all free. It's all taking place here. Im das kanita ma chasarta. If a person's got das, they lack nothing. Im das chasarta ma kanisa. So Rashi on that Gemara, Mem Aleph in the Devarim, it's actually in Koheles, also Koheles Rabbah. I don't remember the exact place, but it's spelt out more clearly actually in Koheles. But the idea is, that's true, because the more a person has das, the more pain they're going to be for other people who don't have. And that is something to really work on when you've got a child who just hasn't got the das to understand what you're saying, and you actually literally have to surrender to Hashem. Rebbeinu Shalom, I am his father, but you're much more his father than me. And you've got to take over, because nothing I'm saying is coming out right. It's not only not being makabel, it's actually backfiring. So I'm begging you, I'm going to daven for this child. I'll still love this child in every way I possibly can. But in terms of parenting, I give that all over to you. So I just finished this point though. So actually, everything that's really, really worth anything is all free. Everything. You can have a Justin Bieber who is suicidal and depressed and on controlled drugs all the time. I'll never forget, I think I may have shared with you when I first met from the Nichnassim, the Beatles, sorry, Ringo Starr. So I once came, did I tell you this story? I once came late to school. I was in a very unusual school. It's an extremely high-paying school, and the serious majority of the kids, their parents were very famous, usually rock stars or famous actors, actresses. Some of you look like you might have heard of Stanley Kubrick. He was the producer of Space Odyssey 2001 and Clockwork Orange. They were don't look it up, X-rated, whatever. So, but he was one of the most famous film producers at the time. His daughter Anya was in my class. She's no longer alive. She died from cancer. Jewish, by the way. So Ringo Starr, not Jewish. He came in school late one morning, bringing his young son Zach, who's actually quite famous today. He's in and out of rehabs and prisons across America. Zach was much younger than me, wasn't in my class, but Ringo Starr came out of his bright green Rolls Royce. I mean, give me a break. How do you take a Rolls Royce and you reduce it to like a anyway? So he gets out of his bright green Rolls Royce, and I was late that morning. I'm very rarely was late for school because we played soccer half an hour before school began. And so I would never miss that for anything unless completely honest. So I came in late that morning, and he comes out of his bright green car, Rolls Royce, holding his son's hand, and he's wearing a filthy, smelly sheepskin coat. And he was wearing high heels. In those days it was in vogue for men. I would say about 4-inch heel and a 1.5 2-inch platform, they were called, and he was up to here on me with his platforms and heels. He was a very, very short guy, and he was the lead drummer in the Beatles. And I went up to him. I said, Ringo, can I have your autograph? He said 2 words to me. The second word was off, and the first word had 4 letters, and it wasn't love. And here he is, drumming away, love is all you need, yeah. You don't even know the first thing of decency. Tell me that your career is in your wrist, and your agent told you you've got to stop with these autographs, but how do you come off that way? So why am I telling you this? Yeah, why am I telling you this?
This stuff is free.
What? And the best things in life are free. I'll never forget that this gentleman, if I can call him that, Ringo Starr, about 40-something years later, was featured in People's Magazine. I didn't get it, but someone showed it to me based on a class that I gave where I quoted this story. And they showed that Ringo Starr wanted to make a public apology to all his friends, fans, and family, 3 Fs, for his verbal abuse over 40 years of verbal abuse to friends, fans, and family. And he gave his explanation why. Because he was depressed. And he was on controlled drugs because he was depressed. And when he wasn't on controlled drugs, he was depressed because he was on uncontrolled drugs. It was mind-boggling. I mean, I got to give him credit for being so honest. He lived a life of depression. Almost all these actors and actresses and people of fame, their lives are sordid. They have such bitter, unhappy lives. My father, who was a very famous actor in England, he was very famous in the film industry, was knighted for his contribution. Sir Robert Rietti. He was knighted in Italy, but he had to get knighthood from the Queen. He had to get her permission for the knighthood. So he told me something I thought was really brilliant. It was so simple but brilliant. He said, you know what? Acting is the only profession in world history where people get so much admiration and appreciation for who they are not. And once you understand that, everything makes sense. You can have the most famous of actors and actresses, and they are depressed to the nth degree for the simple reason. If you met a famous actor or actress inside a restaurant, let's say, and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is really you. I love you, your stunts. I can't believe you do them yourself. And I can't remember the guy who used to be in Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise, thank you. Tom Cruise. So you meet Tom Cruise, say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in the same restaurant as Tom Cruise. It's amazing you do your own stunts, and I love your Mission Impossible. So let me ask you, how do you think 99.9% of people who interface with a famous person, how do they relate to that person? To who they truly are, or who they are on screen?
Screen.
Who they are on the football field, or they don't relate to them as a human being, as a real person, only to the image they have. So this eventually gets to them, where they realize almost everybody only appreciates me for who I am not. When I'm acting, I'm not being me. Hello? Acting means that I'm not being my real self. And it kills them. It eats them up. I remember meeting Gregory Peck. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Yeah. He was the star in The Omen. My father played a major part in that movie. So when I was watching it being filmed in Pinewood Studios, I was warned not to get in conversation with Gregory, because Gregory Peck at that time, that day, his 21-year-old son had committed suicide. This was so typical of the kids of famous people. The parents had no time for them, and it's such an incredible dimion. Now, how do we get into this? I don't remember. Why is it?
Best things in life are free.
Best things in life are free. Chizuk to another Jew is free.
Loving another.
Loving your children and putting into them the Das HaKadosh Baruch Hu is real, and is everywhere all the time. And this world is Olam HaSheker. And whatever people are saying, this is the icon of success. This person here, I'll never forget, I think I shared it with you, meeting Christopher Reeve. Did I tell you that?
No.
Christopher Reeve is famous for being Superman. Okay, which issue did you go to? Okay, so Superman. So Christopher Reeve, he was about 20-something years ago, he was in a horseback riding accident, and he fell off in such a way. It was so interesting. I met him in New Jersey. He was speaking to an audience. I was in the audience. He became a quadriplegic from that accident. He woke up after being in a coma for about 3 months, totally paralyzed from the neck down. The only two parts of his entire body that moved were his eyes and his mouth. And he was wheeled on. A respirator was attached to his chest that would stimulate his lungs and his heart so that he would able to put out one breath of a sentence at a time. Deep in breathing, you could hear it over the microphone, and then give out another sentence, which was obviously with a real strain. And the first words that came out his mouth, he's sitting there in total, completely statue. The words came out of his mouth, "I have never been more happy in my life than since my accident." And my jaw drops, and I say, "Yeah, he's a good actor, but not that good." How do you say you've never been more happy? And then he said, "Because I discovered the real me is not my body. The real me is not the tens of millions of dollars in my bank accounts." He said, "The real me is not the many homes I own. The real me is not even the 500,000 fan mail that I've received over the last 4 years since his accident. That's more than I get junk mail." He said, "The real me," and he starts giving examples. He said, "If God only left me with a brain and a heart, I could still choose to be happy, even if I was blind," he said. He gave examples. The most powerful examples was chesed. When people do chesed for each other, it makes him happy. It's amazing. He said, when he does chesed for people, and he gave examples. He said, he's put in over $100 million, which today is a much larger endowment, which supports spinal injury surgery and research for spinal injury. And he says every few weeks they've got new breakthroughs in this research that promises that in the lifetime of teenagers who are quadriplegics, they'll be able to use their limbs again. And he would go to either rehabs or homes where teenagers who are quadriplegics, completely paralyzed, no use of their limbs. And here comes the icon of success in the American dream, Superman, reduced to a quadriplegic, and he's giving them chizuk and showing them the research from his endowment, which continues. Ad Hayom is no longer alive, and he would tell them what's real kindness. And this is the story he gave. It was mind blowing. He said the biggest kindness is my wife. He said, my wife, she smiles at me. That's her biggest kindness. And one day I said to her, "Why do you still love me?" Because he's a husband who can't be a husband. He's a statue in a wheelchair, and it takes 2 hours for her and an assistant to dress him every morning. I know some ladies take that amount of time to get dressed every morning anyway, but it took 2 hours to dress him every morning, and he would be sitting on this wheelchair. And he said in the first 4 years of recovery, he just wanted to commit suicide, and he couldn't even do that. He said he would be sitting in his chair saying, "Anyone out there? Anyone? Please pull the plug. Anyone? Hello? Please pull the plug." He couldn't take it. He was in prison inside his body. And then he said he realized that the real prison was not his body. It was his thinking. He limited himself from what he was saying inside his mind. And then when he said to his wife, "Why do you still love me?" he said her answer blew his mind. From that moment onwards, it was all upward. She said such a simple answer that he wrote his autobiography. He couldn't write with his hands. It's a special screen that has ABC and 1, 2, 3 and a space bar, and there's a microphone icon. You may have seen this technology. I've actually seen it. It's very fascinating. And the camera in the screen is locked into your eyes, and if you look at one letter for more than 1.5 seconds, it prints it on the screen. Then you move your eyes to another letter, and that's how you communicate with other people if you can't talk. He would talk, and the technology would translate it for him. So he wrote an autobiography based on her answer, "Why do you still love me?" And she said, "Because you're still you." he wrote a book called Still Me. It was a pun on the fact that he was still, he couldn't physically move. But the real me was still there, and he got a whole lot better. And this was a very powerful message, that everything that matters the most is inside us already. We've got all patience, forgiveness, completely free, love, happiness, nekudas tovos, simcha, hisbodedus. There's no charge. 1-800 Almighty. It's a free call, 24/7, 365, 120. All our lives we can talk to Hashem, and He's always available. So everything that's the best, and a best friend, if I don't have a physically best friend, I got to be a best friend for myself. Make yourself your own chaver. Be a friend to yourself. At least I should not be my own enemy and not put myself down. At least be my friend. So I didn't get into the details of what I wanted to cover fully, but what I'll do next week, Bezrat Hashem, is we're going to unpack what does it mean speaking to a friend in Yirat Shemaim, and what is the definition of a chaver, of a real friend, because it's spelt out here in headlines, but we're going to unpack that, and then we're going to go to paragraph Vav, which is all about Makifim. It's a huge world to enter, that the tzaddik is responsible for opening the mind of the students to such an extent that their hekef, their context of understanding exponentially increases to the point where their mind opens up and they look at the world completely differently. And the highest level of that tzaddik, which we're going to see in paragraph Vav, is that the tzaddik can reach to the lowest Jew, open his mind and realize how beloved he is in Hashem's eyes, and from that moment onwards he wants to pick himself up and not go back. Thank you for your patience. Keep warm.
When I was looking from the outside, I saw the fire of Torah burning in.
Oh, very good.